Okay, so you joined in 69. The Vietnam War was not popular in
Nope.
1969. Being in the military was not a popular thing to do, and yet you did it.
I just thought it was a debt I owed.
When you joined the Army, when you elected to join the Army, which I assume was 1970?
I joined in 69. I was in training from 69 to 71.
Okay, so you joined in 69. Being in the military was not a popular thing to do, and yet you did it.
I just thought it was a debt I owed.
That's amazing to me. And you knowing that you were going to be sent to Vietnam, I assume.
Well,
right?
To be quite honest, when I went down to the recruiting station in Fairmont, West Virginia, and took the test and was interviewed, they asked me to come back on Thursday, and I had to be. They sent me to see the psychiatrist to make sure I was not nuts. They didn't understand.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Is that real? That's really true.
Yeah, the Army psych was there. He wanted to talk to me before he approved my enlistment.
Just to make sure that you were. Wow, is that interesting?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So, did you volunteer for to be for a MAT position, or they volunteered?
No, after OCS, they sent us out. I was at Fort Campbell training troops, and it was like they needed MAT teams, so they reached into the file drawer where our OCS class was and pulled out a bunch of folders, and we all showed up on the first day of training. It was like a reunion for a small section of the OCS company.
And you had to learn a little bit of Vietnamese.
I spent 2 months at Fort Bragg at Special Forces Center, trained by Special Forces veterans who were looking at us as carrying on what they had done. So they put a lot into it because they wanted us to maintain what they'd started. Then I went to Fort Bliss, Texas for the Defense Language Institute Southwest and 3 months of intensive Vietnamese language training.
Wow.
Which I didn't tell anyone about because the less they knew about that, the better for me.
That is really interesting. So you could hear what they were saying, but they didn't know that you knew what they were saying. I've been showing some wonderful pictures that you brought back, a communication trench between two 50 cal machine gun positions,
right.
The zigzag. And that is, I assume, a 50 cal right here.
Yes, the white thing on the left is overhead cover for the mortar. Yeah, that's trained on a high ground about three clicks out that they could mortar us from.
The first thing I thought when you said that you weren't getting supplied, you were getting your supplies from the Vietnamese. What about the food?
The medic would go to the village with the cook and buy stuff on the market. We had a lot of fresh stuff, and once a month, a work helicopter would stop, and I'd hand them a commissary list. They go down to the commissary at Benoit, buy food, bring it back with coke and soda and beer, and I'd pay them. Then at payday, the team would pay me for what I'd spent out of pocket on the food.
So you were buying. Can you clarify? You were buying food out of pocket?
Well, right. I mean, basically, the supply sergeant for the province would show up with food, hand it to us, and I had to pay him. So I paid him out of my pocket. And on payday, the team would pay me back whatever fraction of the food cost was.
Shouldn't he have been dropping off rations, or no?
No, because we weren't being fed by the Army, so we were drawing food allowance.
Got it.
So right.
Did you eat Vietnamese food when you were there?
Yeah. Yes.
What did you think?
The story in training was don't ask what it is, just eat it and enjoy it. Basically, I have honestly, and this will bother some of the people that are listening. I have eaten cat, I've eaten dog, I've eaten rat, I've eaten snake, and monkey. So water buffalo. So those things were part of eating with the Montagnards or the Cambodians or the Vietnamese that were in the village where I was.
Oh my gosh, Jim, are you serious?
Yep.
And you knew it at the time. I'm eating rat.
Pretty much, yeah. It's protein.
Ooh. What an adventure.
Yeah, it was. In retrospect, yeah, it was.
Was it frightening? Was it scary? Were you scared?
At times.
When?
At times. I can remember one time laying in a hole shaking so hard I could barely hold my rifle. And so, it's at times it was, you like to be in control of things. And so, we spent one night, we had about 250 troops in the camp. We spent one night surrounded by 2,500 either NVA or main force Viet Cong moving around us.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, there were tough times. But again, I had faith in the RF troops that were protecting us. I had faith in the two teams I was with, the district team and the MAT team. We would do the best to take care of ourselves. I mean, we got out. We had one guy wounded slightly, and no one killed by the time I was there, so we did okay.
Are you? I think I know the answer to this, but are you glad you did it?
I'd do it again.
You would do it again?
Yeah.
What did it do for you?
You'd have to ask my wife that. She says I'm different, but I think it made me appreciative. You know, you don't sweat the small stuff. You don't sweat the small stuff. You know, the bottom line is if you know, worry about things you can affect and change, and try to take what comes. Try to take the things that you can change as they come.
How are you, Irmgard?
I'm so perfect, it's pathetic.
You're so perfect, it's pathetic?
Yes.
And you have your little friend there, little lamb.
Lily in her tutu crocheted her last week. And
You never know what you're going to get here.
She's my buddy.
And do you remember the when like, what's your first awareness of Adolf Hitler?
Probably when I started going to school.
Okay. And what did you think of Adolf Hitler as a little girl?
Well, we knew nothing else. I thought he was the greatest thing on earth.
Right. But how else are you going to, you know, what else would you know? When your dad left and went to war, that left kind of your mother and essentially you in charge of the household, right? You being the eldest sibling. What was it like? Can you give, you know, our listeners, Americans like me who haven't known war, what it was like to live through World War II in Germany?
The hardest thing, and I didn't realize it at the time, but as I look back over the years, the hardest thing was we were not farmers, like I said. The farmers got the rations. That meant clothing, shoes. We were not farmers. So it was not necessary for us to have new shoes so we can get in the field working shoes. But if I and the brother next to me, he was not so much about going out in the fields working. He went and worked for wherever he could. He worked in a garage fixing cars. But my other brother, he worked next door and lived there with a farmer. But I went out every day with a farmer. And when the time came, I had no more shoes. I couldn't walk barefoot on the stubbles after they cut the wheat, and my feet were bleeding. So I couldn't walk there anymore. I was babysitting farmers' children. And there was one farmer, they were very good to me, many farmers. I babysat a lot of children, and at night, when I went home, everybody knew my mom, we had no food.
Yeah.
So I would get maybe, sour milk was a big thing. We ate sour milk 3 times a night. That meant the whole potatoes got boiled, and the sour milk the farmers made the sour milk, and I got a jug full about like this tall.
Yeah.
And my mother poured it in a bowl and stirred it a little. And the problem was the youngest one was a little too small. My mom had to feed him. But we sat around the bowl, and whoever ate the fastest got the most.
Wow.
So my mother said, okay, first the younger ones eat. And we because it just was like we got a spoon and we all ate out of one bowl. We didn't spoon it out we were not that formal. We just ate. And our potato in the hand, we gnawed on a potato and that. And so, but eventually my mom developed nervous disorders because we grew into teenagers. She had 4 teenagers at hand. And when I was 12, I more or less took over the household.
Right.
I learned, I always knew how to cook. I don't know. You just see from your mom, your grandma. I just grew into knowing what a household needed. Nobody had to say, no, you don't do it. You do it this way. It was automatic. But I have a sister who was 90 this month. She will be 90 on the 11th, tomorrow, on 2 days. And she still holds it against me that I would sweep. Our house was not level inside. The bedroom, the living room sort of sloped. Our house was 350 years old.
Oh my.
Built on a rock and beams with straw in between. And so the house landed, and because it would always was too dusty, when my dad used to change the oil in a car, we saved that old oil and smeared it over the wooden floor so that the dust couldn't escape. So when I swept, there was no dust, but there was always a pile of dirt. And I never picked it up. My sister had to pick it up. So my sister still says, her name is Rita, yeah, you made me pick up the dirt piles.
It's 75 years ago. Okay, you have an accordion that is 75 years old that your father sent you?
I came over here and I said to my dad, I went to the German club last night and I said, that woman played the accordion so bad. I had an accordion, I think I could play better than she did. About 2 months later, I had my accordion I have now, the duplicate of this one.
We should have you come on and play the accordion a little bit. That would be fun.
Song for you next.